All right, you're back in the DFSR here with an NBA podcast and on YouTube Tuesday, January 17th, back after the longest of hiatuses. Years at this point with DFSR's NBA podcast. That's all right. We're getting back into the mix, going to be coming at you multiple times a week, talking about what to look for on FanDuel and DraftKings. We'll do a few times a week in terms of value. What are some of the injury situations we're going to want to look at? What are some of the pieces of the puzzle when you're trying to put together those FanDuel and DraftKings lineups? What are some bets we can put in over the course of a slate? All of that's going to be covered at the DFSR NBA podcast. I am Doug Norrie, obviously the owner and operator. Going to take you through these different slates, take you through what to look for going into each one. The first one we're bringing at you here is the Tuesday slate, 4-gamer coming off the MLK all-day NBA action. NBA slows it down a little bit on Tuesday, starting at 7:30 Eastern. So if you're trying to get that extra half hour in for yourself from the 7 p.m. start, don't do what I do in my house. Don't tell anybody. Just have everyone assume it's still 7 p.m. and you're going to need the time leading up to it. But the NBA doesn't start until 7:30, and that is where we're going to start with our big questions of the day, what to look for over on FanDuel and DraftKings. And even for a 4-game slate, there is a decent amount to kind of have to wade through going into this one. NBA, as always, is just littered with injuries, whether it's rest, whether it's injuries to superstars. These things are cropping up on a nightly basis. We're more than halfway through the season, and we've seen this happen multiple times. It's nothing new when it comes to the NBA. This season, to some degree, maybe has been seen a little more of it, although I do think that in terms of DraftKings and FanDuel, the sites have done a little bit better about pricing the replacements, right? Like the guys who stand to see the biggest usage, the biggest on-ball time bump, the biggest rebounding assist, the biggest bumps when you see the superstars out. I think it actually, to some degree, is a little tighter this year than other years because sometime in the past, that opportunity flowed down chain, and it still does, but there's still, most teams have a hierarchy that makes the decision at least a little closer than it has been in the past. So we'll take a look at some of the stuff that we need to consider going into this 4-gamer. The first one is what to do with Kyrie Irving and the Nets. Obviously, Kevin Durant has missed the last couple games. He's set to miss the foreseeable future with the knee injury. Kyrie and the Nets are coming off of 2 losses back-to-back to the Celtics and the Thunder, and it's been sort of a struggle. Kyrie's been a popular play on both sites over the last couple games. The minutes have been there, 38 in both. The usage, for the most part, has been there with 20 and 24 shots respectively. Although I will say that I think what people and what we thought in our system as well would be a meaningful usage bump for him off of what he was already averaging this season. 20 shots against OKC does fall under reasonable expectations. I think he only finished that game with 15 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds. No Ben Simmons in the lineup. They did end up starting Edmund Sumner in his place. Simmons a late scratch. I will say going into this game, the Nets are still values on both sites. Kyrie, really everybody, right? So let's go through what we're looking at with where we can grab value on FanDuel and DraftKings. As of right now, Kyrie is coming 9.3K on FanDuel, and over on DraftKings, he's 9.9. That is probably starting to push up against the bounds of acceptable value. That one's probably starting to get close. I don't think FanDuel is that close. I still think we can do it, though. I will say there is probably some concern around how many shots he's getting up in general. The Spurs make that easy. Spurs are last overall in defensive efficiency this season, 5th overall in pace when it comes to just looking for DFS value, non-injury related. That's exactly where you want to be in terms of playing players against them. Nets come into this game with a 119 implied total, easily the second highest of the slate behind only the Nuggets at 122.5. So you're getting at least the requisite amount of implied points going to this game. I think from Kyrie's perspective, you probably like that. We probably have to roll him one more game here with the understanding that if the shots still stay around the same usage rate, I think we are getting concerned against any other opponent at these price points. After that, Ben Simmons, we know the situation with him. He sat out last game. The guy doesn't want to shoot. He still can kind of get there on assists and rebounds. We saw that in the Celtics game where he doubled and then barely, I don't think he scored it. He didn't score at all in the game against the Celtics. He didn't double, 13 points, 9 rebounds, no points against the Celtics, but comes close to getting there in his prices because the other counting stats get there. Two steals, a block, and we know that's going to count extra on FanDuel. And he is at a premium position at power forward, which is often difficult to fill. So I think with Kyrie, you can play him. Simmons, you can play. Claxton, second overall in the league in blocks and could take over first if the things go well for him tonight. He's only 2 behind Brook Lopez. Obviously on FanDuel, where defensive stats are going to count for a little extra, we're going to be fine rolling Claxton here. The usage for him is never going to be high, but that's because he's at the rim finisher. Luckily, when he's at the rim, highest field goal percentage and effective field goal percentage this year. So with the Nets, I think because of the matchup against the Spurs, because this is going to be a fast-paced game, because the total's high, because they're still without Durant, I think you have no problem on FanDuel running 4 of these guys. You maybe throw Royce O'Neal into the mix, whose minutes have been on the higher side. But Simmons, Kyrie, Claxton feel pretty much like locks in this situation. And I feel like that's probably the same over on DraftKings, where Simmons is 5.9K salary makes it not that much of a question. And frankly, actually helps you fit some other pieces of your lineup around. So with the Nets, the things we're looking for here, can Kyrie get the shots up? Can this pace stay up toward the implied total? Excuse me. And basically at this point, how many Nets do we want to run? Are we thinking even about 5 over on DraftKings? That one makes things sometimes a little different, a little difficult. Second question we have for this slate is, will Giannis play? So Giannis was a sort of a late scratch on Monday. He did not play in the Martin Luther King game. He had been probable going into that game and then was taken out about 90 minutes or so before tip-off. Right now, the way the line is set up, the Bucks are -6 home favorites against the Raptors. That line suggests that Giannis is going to be playing in this game, although it's open at -6 and is now down to -4.5. So actually, I'm going to amend that a little bit and say maybe there is some question around what his status is for this game. This one's very, very easy. If Giannis plays, he is a play in this game, though we are pushing up against really acceptable pricing on both sites, especially when you have Jokic going in this one as well, and if you're concerned at all about injury. If Giannis does not play, then we're firing Drew Holiday back up without hesitation. He's coming off a huge game on Monday where he basically took over everything the Bucks needed to do. He finished with 35 points and 11 assists. We know the usage rate and the on-ball time go way up for Drew with Giannis off the court. So he's a lock and load play. Anyone that's even remotely been in DFS knows that this is going to be the case. Bobby Portis would likely see the start again. He coming off a 21 point and 11 rebound game. So and the pricing has not changed on him enough. Brook Lopez, probably a little closer, only 11 shots in his 34 minutes though. And with Nic Claxton on the slate, I think you'd probably rather go Claxton here, even at a more expensive price point. Lopez doesn't see quite the increase in production that you would hope with Giannis off the court. And then you're looking at maybe Grayson Allen, Pat Connaughton to round out some lower level price plays. And that's sort of where you land with the Bucks situation. It's a wait and see. I think we will have enough news before lock to know this situation. So I'm not that worried about it. It is not the first game on this. It is the first game on the slate. So we will have all the information that we need going into that one. Third question of this one, and there's a 3A question that I'll ask after this one, is Fred Van Vleet's shooting this season. What to do with Fred Van Vleet? He has been one of the more interesting sort of test cases around DFS viability because on the one hand, when things are going well for the Raptors, we know that Van Vleet can play just about the most minutes in basketball. He's coming off 40 in regulation last game against the Knicks, torched them for 33 points. That's great to see. The problem with Van Vleet is if you look back really the whole season, he's shooting significantly under his career averages from 3. He's shooting under his career averages from the field. He's admitted multiple times that the shooting has been a struggle for him, and he's coming off the 4 previous games. He had 3 points, yikes, against the Hawks, 11 points against the Hornets, 11 points again against the Hornets on the home and home, And that's about one of the best matchups you can get in basketball. And then 14 against Portland, who's not exactly a powerhouse defensively. I am of the mind that over the long term, sample size will win out with this. And right now, we're getting Van Vleet at an incredible discount on FanDuel at 7,100. I know not everyone will see that. I do think probably the last game will help people feel a little better about the shooting with the 33 points going into that game. Maybe you had a harder time just sort of firing that up. But with Van Vleet, I think we can rely on a larger sample size with his scoring and feel pretty good about where the price is coming in on FanDuel. Last piece is just, won't throw a banner up for this one. If you're watching on YouTube, much appreciated. If you're listening on the podcast, make sure you subscribe over on YouTube. The Clippers go into this game against Denver. They're not going to have Paul George back in this one. Luke Kennard, Clippers host the Sixers, they're not going to have Paul George again. They're not going to have Luke Kennard again. Terrence Mann has moved full-time into the point guard role for the Clippers, been playing massive minutes. Reggie Jackson, essentially relegated to a bench role, is really out of the rotation for all intents and purposes. John Wall was injured last game, but the plan looks like they want to play Terrence Mann multiple or as many minutes as possible. The usage is always going to be normally going to be pretty low on him when you share the court with Kawhi and some of these other guys. But anyone that's going to play 40 minutes in 2 or 3 games is a guy that we really want to consider at only 5,700 on DraftKings. The price is a little closer on FanDuel, where he's at 5,700, but that's going to take up more of the overall percentage of salary. I still think he's probably a play. Does not draw a great matchup here against Philly from the defensive end. But in terms of middle tier value, which can at times be problems on both of these sites with the way pricing is gone, like I mentioned at the top, I do think you want to consider Terrence Mann. Happy to be back over on the NBA podcast. Going to be coming at you multiple times a week with plays, with things to think about for FanDuel and DraftKings. Make sure you visit DFSR.com. You grab a free trial of the projection system, which is going to power all these thoughts and all the different lineups we're throwing out for DraftKings. DFSR.com. Sign up for a free trial, free for 7 days. You test it out. You see if you like it. We think you will. There's a reason we're one of the longest running DFS outlets around. We will be back again later this week talking more NBA when you're back in the DFSR.